Hi, I'm David. Thank you for spending the night with us. Tonight we go back more than 2,000 years to the Great Library of Alexandria on a quiet night by the sea, when you are allowed to stay after closing among the lamps and the scrolls. Everything you will hear is drawn from real history, and the sources are listed below. There are no ads waiting to wake you, and nothing sudden ever happens here. So settle in, let the day go, and let the past keep you company. Good night. Welcome, traveler. You can close your eyes now. There is nothing here you need to see with your eyes open, and nothing here that needs anything from you at all. Tonight, the only work being done is the work of resting, and you are already doing it perfectly. Tonight, we are going back more than 2,000 years to a city at the edge of Egypt, where the great river finally finds the sea, a young city as this old land counts age, not yet a century and a half old, laid out on a ribbon of shore, between a harbor and a lake, by a man who never lived to see a single street of it finished. The city is Alexandria. It is the largest city of the Greek world, and its harbor is the busiest water anywhere under the sun, and neither of those things is why we are going. We are going because in the royal quarter of this city, on quiet ground, close above the harbor, stands a precinct dedicated to the Muses, and gathered within it, in halls and colonnades and storerooms, and small lamplit alcoves, rests the greatest collection of books the world has ever brought together in one place. Hundreds of thousands of rolls of papyrus, lying in their niches and their cedar chests, patient as seeds. More of what the world has written down than has ever been gathered in one place is under these roofs tonight. All of it is asleep, and you are going to sleep in the middle of it. Nothing bad happens in this library tonight. Nothing surprising happens either. The doors are barred, the lamps are counted, the harbor is settling, and the only argument anywhere in the building this evening was a friendly one. Two old scholars disagreeing about a single line of Homer, which is the closest thing this house has to weather. Tonight is one quiet night among tens of thousands of quiet nights that history never bothered to write down. That is why we are going. The chronicles kept the kings and the wonders and the discoveries. They let the quiet nights slip through, and the quiet nights were most of what a life was, even here, even in the most famous building in the world. You are here as a guest tonight, a visiting scholar from across the sea, with a letter of introduction that has opened every door it touched. For some days now, you have had a table in the great reading hall and the run of the collection, and you have spent those days copying out, in your own careful hand, a text you crossed the water to find, to carry home with you when you sail. The copying is nearly done. One column of writing remains, no more, and the sailing season will not wait forever. And so the keeper of this hall, an unhurried man who has quietly decided he likes you, has granted you a rare and gentle privilege. You may stay past closing. You may finish your work by lamplight and take a little supper and sleep here on a borrowed couch in a reading alcove inside the library itself, with the whole sleeping weight of the world's knowledge for company. And before the night is over, this house will hand you two small gifts. One is a passage of poetry, the very lines you have left to copy, which happen to be, out of all the lines in all these hundreds of thousands of rolls, the kindest ever written about falling asleep. The other is a word, a plain word you have spoken all your life without a thought, and before you drift off you will learn that it was born here, in this building, and has been traveling toward you ever since. That is the whole of tonight's story. If you drift off in the middle of it, that is not an interruption. That is the story working. So, Let the last hour of the day come and go. The great reading hall runs long and high, and at this hour it is mostly made of shadow. The windows stand tall in the upper walls, their shutters still folded back, and through them the last of the day is leaving, that deep blue that comes up off the sea at evening and fills a room slowly, the way water finds its level. Down the length of the hall, the day is being put away. Scholars rise from their tables one by one, unhurried, pressing the stiffness out of their shoulders. Reed pens are wiped and laid in their cases. Ink is stoppered. Rolls are wound closed, slowly, evenly, with the particular tenderness of people who know exactly how much grief a cracked edge causes, and handed to the attendants, who carry them back into the dimness along the walls, each rolled to its own niche, each niche its own small address in this dim city of shelves. The soft sounds of all this putting away drift down the hall like the sounds of a household at dusk, wood on wood, papyrus whispering against papyrus, low voices saying the things people say at the end of a working day in any century at all. Tomorrow then. Yes, tomorrow. Sleep well. An old man at the far end is the last to surrender his table, as he apparently is every night, waving off the attendant with a fond impatience that fools no one. When he finally shuffles out, one of the attendants straightens the stool. He left crooked, and the hall is empty. Empty except for you. The keeper of the hall comes to you last, carrying a lamp. He is a man past his middle years, quiet-footed from a lifetime of walking among readers, and he sets the lamp down on the stone of your table, well away from your work, well away from everything, because in this house light is a servant with rules. Lamps stand on stone. Lamps never travel along the shelves. Lamps are few and counted, and every one of them is somebody's responsibility by name, and this one, tonight, is yours and his together. It is a small clay lamp with a linen wick, and its flame stands up steady and orange and gives exactly enough light to write by, and not one finger's breadth more, and the great hall gathers itself around that small glow the way night gathers around a single lit window. Stay, he says. Finish your column. There's a couch made up in the alcove, and a little supper coming, such as the hour allows. The Muses keep a quiet house at night. You will find it does you good. Somewhere below, the great doors are barred for the night, a deep wooden sound that travels up through the floor and settles the whole building like a hand laid on its shoulder. The last footsteps fade down the colonnade. The hall is yours. The night begins. Before you take up your pen again, the keeper makes his evening round, and you walk it with him, because a house shows itself best over the shoulder of somebody who loves it. He goes slowly down the long aisles with his own small lamp held steady in both hands, and the shelves and niches pass through the warm edge of its light and back into the dark. This is where the books live, and they are not books as you might picture books. Nothing here is folded or bound or standing upright in rows. That way of making a book has not been dreamed up yet, and will not be for centuries. Here, a book is a roll, a long ribbon of papyrus wound close around itself, and the rolls lie on their sides, in the wall niches, and in wooden chests of cedar, ends outward, stacked like honeycomb, like a dovecote, like a wall made of held breath. From the end of each roll hangs a little tag on a cord, and on each tag a title and a name, so that a searching reader can walk the dimness and read the hanging tags like a man reading door plates down a street, and never disturb 100 sleepers to find the one he wants. And over all of it, faint and clean and everywhere, lies the smell of this house, the smell you will carry home in your clothes and be glad of. Papyrus, first, which smells like dry summer grass, like a field at the end of August, and under it and through it, cedar oil, bright and resinous, brushed onto the rolls and rubbed into the chests, because the small worms and moths that love to eat books cannot abide cedar, and so the whole library wears it like a perfume. Half the thought of the world, dressed against the appetite of insects by the oil of a mountain tree. It is one of the most practical smells there is, and one of the loveliest, and long after tonight, wherever cedar finds you, some part of you will be standing in this aisle again, in this lamplight, watching the niches drift by. At the end of one aisle, in a deep chest of its own, lives the map of this whole dim country, the catalogue, 120 rolls, drawn up 2 generations ago by a poet named Callimachus, who set himself the task of listing everyone who had ever distinguished themselves in every branch of learning, and what they wrote, and how each work begins, and how many lines it runs. A library of the library. The keeper rests his hand on the chest as he passes, the way you would rest a hand on a familiar door frame, and moves on. He checks the shutters, one by one, each folded home against the sea air. He checks the few lamps that still burn, each on its stone, each in its place. He looks down every dark aisle as he passes it, not anxiously, only fondly, the look of a man counting sleeping children who are never going to be anywhere else. And then the round is done, and it took almost no time at all, because there is almost nothing to it, and everything it guards is asleep. On the way back, the keeper pauses at a tall window and unfolds one shutter, and you look out with him, and there below you lies the harbor at night. Dark water and the darker shapes of ships riding at anchor, more ships than you can count, hulls from every coast of the sea, their masts making a thin, bare forest against the last of the light. The water breathes against the sea wall far below, slow and soft, never quite the same sound twice, and the ships lean and settle on their moorings, and somewhere among them a rope shifts against wood once and goes quiet. And the keeper tells you, in a low voice, with a smile somewhere inside it, how this library eats. The kings of the city decided, 100 years ago, to collect everything. Not the best of everything. Everything. Every book in every tongue, from every land, their ships and their letters and their silver could reach. They sent buyers to every book market of the Greek world, with purses that ended every negotiation. And there are rolls in this house tonight in the languages of other nations entirely, rendered patiently into Greek by companies of translators, because the kings wanted not just the Greek world's memory, but the whole world's. And then there are the ships. This is the story the house loves best to tell about itself. So take it the way the house tells it, with a smile in the dark. Any ship that drops anchor in this harbor, from anywhere, is asked one question along with all the usual questions of harbors. What books are aboard? And whatever is aboard is borrowed, and carried up here, and copied out fair by the house scribes. And the copy goes politely back down to the ship, and the original stays. There is a section of these shelves, the keeper says, known in the record simply as the books from the ships. And once, the story goes, the king borrowed from the city of Athens itself the official copies of their 3 great tragedians against a deposit of silver so enormous it was meant to make the loan safe forever, and then kept the originals, sent back beautiful copies, and told Athens with perfect courtesy to keep the silver. The keeper tells it the way a man tells a story about a grand and slightly scandalous grandparent, shaking his head, proud to the bone. Every library that will ever exist, though he does not say it and cannot know it, will be a politer child of this one. Below the window, a night bird crosses the dark harbor, calls once, far off, and is gone. The keeper folds the shutter to, and the harbor becomes a hush behind the wall, and you walk back into the cedar dark. Supper is waiting for you on a bench in the colonnade, where one lamp burns on the stone beside a covered tray. The common meal of this house is long over, for the scholars of the Mouseion dine together every evening in a hall the king provides, and by this hour they have gone off to their rooms and their arguments and their beds. So the keeper sits with you instead, in the quiet, in the good plain way of a man who has eaten his own supper, but will keep you company through yours. Under the cloth there is bread, round and dense, with a crust that answers the thumb, and a dish of figs, dark and honey sweet, split to show their red hearts, and a few olives, and a little soft white cheese, and a cup of wine, mixed generously with cool water in the Greek way, mild as an evening, because only barbarians drink it neat, and nobody sleeps well who does. You eat slowly. The bread is good, the figs are better, the watered wine is a warmth without a weight, and the colonnade holds its columns up into the dark around you like a grove holding still. While you eat, the keeper talks a little, the way a lamp burns, low and easy, about this house. The king feeds and lodges and pays a whole community of scholars to live here and do nothing, that is, except think and read and measure and argue at dinner. Poets, geometers, physicians, grammarians, men who study the stars and men who study verbs, free of rent, free of taxes, free of nearly everything except one another. A sharp-tongued poet of the last century called this place the bird cage of the Muses, where rare learned birds are kept and fed and sing all day, and the scholars themselves repeat the joke more often than anyone, because a joke you love is a kind of home. The tray you are eating from was carried up by a servant of the house, and there are many under these roofs, some free and some not, and that is the honest shape of a royal household in this age, and we will not pretend otherwise. This house, you can hear it in the ease of the voices that echo down its colonnades by day, is one of the gentle ones, and tonight every soul within its walls will end the day fed and quiet and safe under the same roofs, and that is the picture we are keeping. And he tells you, because you ask, about the old man you saw at the far table, the one who surrenders his place last every night. He kept this whole library for many years, the keeper says, and he is the man who measured the earth. Far up the river, at Sieni, there is a well where the midsummer sun at noon looks straight down to the water and leaves no shadow at all. On that same noon, here in Alexandria, an upright stick casts a small, definite shadow. He compared the angle of the one with the nothing of the other, and he knew how far it is between the two places, and from those two things alone, a shadow and a distance, he stretched the measure out and around and computed the circle of the entire earth, and came, as near as anyone can tell, astonishingly close to the truth, the size of the whole world, worked out by a patient man with a stick, a shadow, a well, and an afternoon. That, says the keeper, gathering the tray, is the kind of thing this house is for. Before you go back to your pen, let me hand you the first of the two gifts, because you have been sitting inside it all evening. This whole precinct, the halls and the colonnade and the dining hall and the library that is its treasure, is called the Mausion, the house of the Muses, the 9 quiet goddesses of music and poetry and history and dance and the stars, the givers of every art that makes a life more than a livelihood. And the old poets say, the 9 sisters have one mother, and her name is memory, Mnemosyne. Every art the Muses give, the poets meant, is a child of remembering. A song is memory that learned to be beautiful. A history is memory that learned to be careful. This building is their house, and it is a house of memory, and that is not a figure of speech. It is the plainest description anyone could write of a library. Any shrine of the Muses is a Mausion, and there were others before this one, and there are others now. But this one grew so famous that its name outgrew it and set off traveling. The Greeks handed the word to the Romans, who wrote it museum, and the word wore down and it endured, the way a word does when a great many mouths carry it for a great many years, and it crossed languages and centuries and seas, and it arrived at last in yours, still meaning what it has always meant, a museum. Every museum in your world, the great ones with their marble halls and their whispering visitors, the small ones with 3 rooms and a kind volunteer by the door, every one of them is named for this house. And every time you have ever said the word museum, you have been saying, without knowing it, House of the Muses, and pointing, without knowing it, back here, to a lamplit precinct above a dark harbor in Alexandria. The children of memory keep houses everywhere now. You do not have to remember any of this, but if the word finds you some ordinary afternoon, on a ticket, on a sign, on a school trip, shuffling past the old stones, you may feel it happen. The little pull back along the word's long road to the colonnade and the cedar smell and the small flame standing on stone. Under the oldest words, somebody is always keeping a house for memory. One more thing to see before your work, and the keeper shows it to you from the end of the colonnade, because a guest of this house should see it once from this house. Look north, across the harbor, past the anchored fleet, to the long, low island that shelters this whole bay from the open sea. A causeway runs out to it from the city, drawn across the water like a ruled line, and at the island's eastern tip stands a tower. Even in the dark you can feel how tall it is. Pale stone rising in great stages, the tallest tower human hands have yet raised anywhere on earth, with only the old pyramids far up the river to rival it, so tall that sailors speak of seeing it before they see Egypt itself. The island is called Pharos, and so is the tower, and at the very top of it, all night, every night, burns a fire. From here, it is a small warm star, sitting just above the black water, perfectly still, perfectly patient. From far out at sea, it is the first sign of home or haven, the one point of certainty on the whole dark rim of the world. Men tend that flame in shifts, the whole night through, hauling the fuel up through the tower's heart, feeding the fire and the wind at the top of the world, so that everyone else on the water can be less afraid. It has burned every night for 80 years. It is burning now. There are men up there at this moment, unhurried, warming their hands, keeping it. Keepers change. The light never does. Between you and the tower lies the whole harbor, breathing. The water lifts and settles against the sea wall, slow as a sleeper's chest. The ships nod on their moorings, and the tower's flame lays one long trembling line of gold out across the black water toward you, like a lamp seen down a dark hall. and you stand in the colonnade of the house of memory and look at it for a while, and nothing happens anywhere except the sea breathing and the light standing steady. And that is exactly as much as this night intends to offer, and it is more than enough. Back in your alcove, the lamp waits on the stone table, burning small and even, and your work lies where you left it. The original, old and supple, held gently open, your copy beside it, the ink of the day's columns long dry, one empty space remaining at the end, the width of a hand. The couch stands against the wall behind you, with its blankets folded, promising nothing yet. First, the last column. And here's the second gift. For see what the day has saved for your lamplight. The book you crossed the sea to copy is old Homer, the Odyssey, the poem of the man who took 10 years to fight at Troy and 10 more to find his way home. There is no better house on earth in which to copy it. The scholars of this library have spent the better part of a century combing this poem, line by line, comparing copy against copy from every city and every island, marking the doubtful verses, guarding the true ones, and they say it was here that the long poem was first divided into its books, one for each letter of the Greek alphabet. What you carry home will be the poem at its cleanest, Homer as this house keeps him, and your copy will be read aloud on winter nights in your own country by people not yet born. The column that remains to you is from the poem's turning, and it is the passage this whole night has been keeping for you. Odysseus, worn thin by 20 years of war and wandering, every trial finally behind him, is taken aboard a ship at last by a kind seafaring people whose ships, the poet says, are swift as wings. They spread a rug and a linen sheet for him on the deck near the stern. He climbs aboard in silence. He lies down. And then the poet does the gentlest thing he does anywhere in his thousands of lines. He lets him sleep, a sleep deep and sound and sweet, the poem says, the sweetest that can come to anyone, closing over his eyes while the ship runs on. And while he sleeps, others do the sailing. The oars lift and fall, the wake folds shut behind. And the man who has strained and schemed and steered for 20 years does nothing, decides nothing, guards nothing, and is carried asleep the whole way across the water, and is laid, still sleeping, on the sand of his own home island. The long story saves its greatest mercy for the moment its hero stops trying. You copy it slowly. There is no hurrying ink, and no reason to. The reed pen whispers along the fibers of the papyrus. The ink smells faintly of soot and gum. The letters gather one by one under your hand, like birds settling onto a branch at dusk, and the lamp flame leans and steadies with your breathing. You copy the rug spread on the deck, and the silent lying down, and the sweet sleep arriving, and the oars beating on without him, and you understand, somewhere below thought, that the poet knew long ago what you are proving tonight. The deepest rest comes when the carrying is handed over, when the oars belong to someone else, when there is nothing left to steer. You write the last line and lift the pen away, and it is done. The errand that brought you across the sea is finished, in lamplight, in the quietest building in the world. You wipe the pen and stop the ink and set the sponge away, and you wind both rolls closed with the slow evenness the keeper would approve. The original to go home to its niche in the morning, your copy to go home with you across the water, and you set them side by side on the stone, two sleepers, the old book and its new child. The couch takes you the way still water takes a leaf. a wooden frame strung tight, a wool mattress, linen worn soft by a procession of visiting scholars before you, and wool blankets against the sea night, and you draw them up and lie back, and the day's long work arrives in your body all at once, the good tiredness, the kind that has somewhere to go. The lamp burns low on the stone table beside you, small as a bead of amber, yours to keep or pinch as you like. Listen now. The library is going to sleep around you, and every sound it makes is a good sound. The building has a voice, and at this hour you can finally hear it. Not a sound, so much as a texture of quiet, the hush of stone and cedar, and 100,000 sleeping rolls, a stillness so complete it seems to hold you up from beneath. Under it, far below the windows, the harbor breathes against the wall, slow and soft, the sea turning over in its sleep at the edge of hearing. Somewhere down the colonnade, a water clock lets fall its patient drops, one and then another, counting the night hours, the way this clever city has taught water to count, and the drops land somewhere behind your breastbone and dissolve. Your lamp flame stirs once in a draught too small to feel, rights itself, and burns on. The keeper crosses the far end of the hall, a last time, his small light swaying gently with his step, and one by one, the few remaining lamps are pinched out, each one a soft settling of the dark, until the great hall behind him is pure night. In the shrine at the heart of the precinct, a small flame is left burning before the 9 quiet sisters, the one flame in the house that nobody pinches out tonight, keeping its old appointment, and then his footsteps fade away down the stone, unhurried, content. A man closing a day he has closed 10,000 times, and a door somewhere sighs shut, and the house is done with its day. And all around you in the dark, in their niches and their cedar chests, shelf above shelf, hall beyond hall, the books sleep. Homer is asleep, in more copies than anywhere on earth. The geometers are asleep, their proofs folded away like linen. The star tables are asleep, and the maps, with their coasts and their guesses. The remedies are asleep, and the histories, and the comedies that made whole theaters laugh 100 years ago, rolled snug, resting on their sides, breathing cedar. More of what the world has ever known than sleeps anywhere else on earth is lying within a few hundred paces of your couch, and not one word of it is anxious. Everything in this house has been written down, which is a way of saying that everything in this house has been safely remembered, and what has been safely remembered is allowed to rest. So is the one who remembered it. So are you. There is nothing in this night that needs you. The doors are barred, the lamps are counted and dark, the catalog is closed in its chest, the rolls are dressed in cedar against the moth, the flame is standing steady on its tower, and men are tending it so that you need not think of it again. The ships are asleep at anchor on the breathing water. Your copy is finished and wound and waiting beside the original. The errand done, the last column dry. Every task this day contained is either finished or has agreed, gladly, to wait for morning. And morning is a long, long way from here. Tomorrow, in this house, the shutters will fold back, and the sea light will come in and walk down the aisles and find the niches. The scholars will come up the colonnade, arguing cheerfully about the same line of Homer, because the argument is the point. The attendants will carry the rolls out to the tables, like fresh bread. Ships will come in from the whole circle of the sea, and be asked the old question, And somewhere in this building, a scribe will begin copying a book this city has never seen before. And by dark, the library will be one book larger. And down in the harbor, a shipmaster will begin to think about the weather for the crossing that will carry you and your finished copy home. But that is tomorrow, and tomorrow is not your concern, and it is not here yet, and it keeps. History will tell you about this city's kings, and its lighthouse that the world calls a wonder, and the fame of this library, which will be told and retold wherever books are loved, and history is not wrong. But history was written by the daylight. It kept the discoveries and the dedications and the names of the librarians, and it lost almost all the nights, and there were so many more nights than discoveries. Night after quiet night, like this one, cedar and papyrus in the dark, the harbor breathing below the windows, the water clock counting to itself down the colonnade, a lamp on stone, and a traveler asleep beside his finished work in the middle of the greatest gathering of books on earth, doing the oldest thing there is. Nobody wrote it down because everyone was asleep, resting for tomorrow, exactly as people had always done, and exactly as you are doing now, more than 2,000 years downstream, in a room where some far steady light is surely burning for somebody too. This is the oldest thing you will ever do, older than this young city, older than the poem you copied tonight, older than the alphabet cooling on your papyrus, older than every roll in every niche of this whole sleeping house, because before anyone wrote anything, everyone slept, and the sleeping is where the remembering ripens, lying down in the dark while the light is kept by someone else, handing over the oars, trusting the night to pass on its own, because it always has, every single time, no exceptions, not once in all the thousands of years that people have been carried, asleep, toward morning. Your breathing has gone slow and deep. The harbor goes on without needing you, lifting and settling against the wall. The water clock drips its patient count, and the sound has moved all the way inside you now, where it can go on, counting all night, gently, over everything in you that was tired. The shrine flame is watching. The tower is burning on its island, tended. The books sleep around you, all of them now, shelf above shelf, hall beyond hall, the whole remembered world, one warm creature in the dark, breathing slowly, holding its thousands of mornings still, to come the way a wound roll holds its words, patiently, in the dark, till wanted. Let the last of the day go now. The pen is wiped, the ink is stopped, the column is finished. It was a good day. It got you here. The harbor will keep till morning. The morning will keep till you wake. Sleep now, traveler. Good night. History will keep till morning.